I'm Samantha Mitchell, 32, and I've been a dedicated nurse for the past decade. Last month, I called my parents to ask about the $15,000 Maui vacation I had funded for their 35th anniversary. My heart stopped when my mother casually replied, "The whole family went last week. It was amazing." The deafening silence that followed as I processed those words still haunts me. Not only was I not invited, but they had deliberately kept me in the dark despite the fact that I paid for everything. Years of financially supporting my family flashed before my eyes in that moment, but this betrayal cut deeper than anything before. Before I dive into this nightmare, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt taken advantage of by family. Trust me, what happened next in this story might help you avoid the same painful lesson I had to learn. Growing up as the eldest of 4 children in the Mitchell household meant one thing: responsibility. From the age of 12, I was less of a daughter and more of a third parent, cooking meals, helping with homework, and making sure my siblings got to school on time while my parents worked long hours. This pattern only intensified as we grew older. After high school, I put myself through nursing school, working 2 jobs and surviving on ramen while my classmates enjoyed the full college experience. Those years were brutal, studying until 3 a.m. after 8-hour shifts at the diner, skipping social events to pick up extra hours, and struggling to pay rent on my tiny studio apartment. But I persevered and graduated with honors, landing a position at Memorial General Hospital that finally gave me financial stability. My family, however, never seemed to grow out of needing my help. My mother, Judith, 58, has always been the puppet master of our family dynamic, with her perfectly highlighted hair and designer clothes that I often helped pay for. She masterfully plays favorites among her children. I learned early that her love came with conditions, the primary one being usefulness. My father, Robert, 60, is her willing shadow. A contractor whose business never quite took off, he follows my mother's lead in everything. When she's cold to me, he's distant. When she needs money, he makes the call. He's perfected the art of the guilt trip with phrases like, "Your mother and I sacrificed everything for you kids." Then there's my sister Rebecca, 30. The golden child. She's bounced from job to job: fashion buyer, interior design assistant, yoga instructor, never lasting more than a few months at any position. Yet somehow, she always has the latest iPhone and takes weekend trips to New York. Her apartment's rent? I've covered it 6 times in the last 3 years. My brother, Tyler, 28, has a different problem. A gambling habit that started in college has left him in constant financial crisis. Every few months, there's a new emergency car repossession, eviction notice, or loan shark threats. Each time, the family turns to me, the successful one, to bail him out. Completing the Mitchell lineup is my youngest sister, Haley, 25, who has made a career out of copying Rebecca. Whatever golden child does, Haley follows same clothes, same hobbies, same financially irresponsible lifestyle. She once called me at 2 a.m. needing $3,000 for a life-changing opportunity that turned out to be a multi-level marketing scheme selling essential oils. Throughout all this, I've been the family ATM. When Rebecca needed $7,000 for a career-advancing trip to Milan, I provided it. When Tyler faced eviction, again, I covered his back rent. When my parents' roof leaked, I paid for repairs. Conservative estimate? I've given my family over $100,000 in the past 5 years. Despite this financial support, I've repeatedly found myself excluded from family events. Thanksgiving at my parents' house last year? I discovered it happened when photos appeared on Facebook. Rebecca's birthday weekend in Chicago? I wasn't told until after they returned. The pattern was clear, but I kept making excuses for them. The Hawaii vacation was supposed to be different. It was my idea, a special gift to celebrate my parents' 35th anniversary. During a Sunday dinner at their house last December, I presented them with a card containing details of the Maui resort I'd booked for the whole family. "This is too much, Samantha," my mother said, though her eyes gleamed at the photos of oceanfront suites. "You all deserve it, and I want us to have some quality time together," I replied, genuinely hoping this generous gesture might heal our fractured family dynamics. Over the next few months, I sent emails with excursion options, made dinner reservations at top restaurants, and arranged for a professional photographer to capture family portraits on the beach. My parents' responses grew increasingly vague as the trip approached. About the luau reservation on Tuesday, can everyone make the 6 p.m. seating? I texted my mother in April. We'll have to see how things go, she replied, which struck me as odd for a pre-planned vacation. When should I request time off work? I asked my father during a phone call in May. Oh, don't worry about that yet. We're still figuring out the exact dates, he answered, though I had booked the resort for specific dates months earlier. These were red flags I chose to ignore, believing that my family couldn't possibly exclude me from a vacation I had conceived, planned, and fully funded. I was catastrophically wrong. The revelation came on an ordinary Tuesday. I'd just finished a 12-hour shift at the hospital and was exhausted after helping save a car accident victim. As I collapsed onto my couch, I realized I hadn't heard any updates about the Hawaii trip scheduled for the following week. I called my mother to confirm the airport pickup details. Hi, Mom. Just wanted to check what time I should pick everyone up for the airport on Sunday. A pause. Then, oh, Samantha, didn't anyone tell you? The whole family went last week. It was amazing. The room seemed to tilt sideways. What do you mean went last week? I paid for the trip. I made the reservations for next week. Well, we had to change the dates. Rebecca had that interview coming up, and Tyler couldn't get his original days off approved. It just worked better for everyone. Everyone except me, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Honey, we assumed you were too busy with work. You're always saying how short-staffed the hospital is. Her tone was dismissive, as if forgetting to invite your daughter on a vacation she paid for was equivalent to forgetting to pass along a phone message. My hands trembled as I ended the call. Within seconds, I was opening Instagram, where the evidence of their betrayal was displayed in full color. There was Rebecca, posing in a bikini on Kaanapali Beach. My father drinking a Mai Tai at the exact restaurant where I'd made reservations. My mother and Haley getting massages at the resort spa treatments I had prepaid as a special surprise. And Tyler throwing up a peace sign in front of the luau stage, wearing a Hawaiian shirt I recognized because I had bought it for him last Christmas. Dozens of photos, spanning a full week, all tagged Mitchell Family Vacation. Not a mention of me anywhere. They had even taken the family portrait on the beach, the one I had arranged and paid for, standing in a perfect line with synthetic smiles, the empty space where I should have been painfully obvious. My phone buzzed with an incoming call from my mother, perhaps realizing the magnitude of what she'd revealed. I let it go to voicemail, then listened as she spun a web of excuses. Samantha, don't make a big deal out of this. We thought about calling you, but you're always so busy saving lives and everything. It wasn't personal. Maybe we can plan another trip when your schedule opens up. Before I could process this, a text from Rebecca arrived. Sorry you couldn't make it, sis. We missed you. Sort of. Attached was a picture of her holding a coconut drink with a paper umbrella, making a mock sad face. The room spun as I struggled to breathe. This wasn't just about a vacation. It was about years of being used, taken for granted, and now deliberately excluded from something I had created and funded. The vacation had cost me $15,000 money, saved by working extra shifts and skipping my own vacation plans for 2 years. With shaking hands, I called the one person I knew would understand, my best friend Alicia. They did. What? Alicia's outrage was immediate and validating. Samantha, this is beyond messed up. I don't even have words. I feel like I'm going crazy, I whispered. Am I overreacting? Absolutely not, Alicia said firmly. But Sam, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. What? I asked. Not sure I could handle more bad news. This isn't the first time they've done something like this. Remember when you couldn't make it to your parents' anniversary dinner because you were working a double shift in the ICU during that flu outbreak? Yeah? They turned it into a weekend trip to the lake house and didn't tell you. I know because I saw Tyler's Snapchats. And last Christmas, when you had to work on the 24th and said you'd come over on Christmas Day, they told me they were just doing a small dinner. They had a full Christmas Eve party. 20 people, catering, the works. Rebecca's boyfriend's sister was my patient, and she mentioned what a great time they had. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This pattern of exclusion wasn't new. I had just been too blind to see it. My mind flashed to other misunderstandings over the years. The family reunion I arrived a day late for because I was given the wrong date, the weekend trips I learned about after the fact, the dinners that mysteriously changed venues without anyone updating me. Why wouldn't you tell me this before? I asked Alicia, hurt creeping into my voice. Because every time I hinted at it, you defended them, she said gently. You've been making excuses for their behavior for years, Sam. You didn't want to see it. She was right. I had been their enabler, their safety net, and their bank, all while they treated me as an afterthought. The realization was both liberating and devastating. Years of suppressed hurt surfaced in waves of anger, betrayal, and grief. What do I do now? I asked, tears flowing freely. First, you let yourself feel this, Alicia said. Then, we figure out how to make sure they never treat you like this again. That night, I cried until there were no tears left, mourning not just the vacation I'd missed, but the loving family I'd never actually had. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications clearly. Family damage control was in full effect. My father called first, his voice carrying that practiced tone of reasonable authority he uses when trying to diffuse situations. Samantha, there's been a big miscommunication here, he began, as though we were discussing a minor scheduling conflict rather than a deliberate family betrayal. Your mother and I thought we'd mention the date change. With your crazy hospital hours, we figured you couldn't get the time off anyway. Dad, I planned the entire vacation. I paid for everything. How could you possibly think I wasn't intending to go? My voice was steady, masking the turmoil beneath. Now, don't get hysterical, he said, hitting a nerve. We're very grateful for the gift. Very grateful. But you're always saying how short-staffed the hospital is, how you can never get time off. I specifically told you I was requesting those exact dates off months ago, I interrupted. I told everyone multiple times. Well, your memory might be a little off. You've been under a lot of stress lately, he suggested. The first hint of gaslighting that would become their primary strategy. My memory is perfect, Dad. Just like the bank records showing I paid $15,000 for a family vacation I wasn't invited to. He switched tactics immediately. After all, we've done for you, Samantha. Your mother and I sacrificed everything to put you through school. I put myself through school. I worked 2 jobs while studying full-time. I corrected him. See? This is what I'm talking about. You've always been so independent. We didn't think you'd even want to come on a family vacation. You're always too busy for family stuff anyway. Before I could respond to this blatant lie, he added, I have to go. Your mother is very upset about how you're handling this. You should call and apologize to her. My mother's call came an hour later, and it was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Samantha Jean Mitchell, I am deeply hurt by your reaction, she began, using my full name as she always did when performing maternal disappointment. After everything I've sacrificed for you children, to be accused of, whatever it is you're accusing me of, stealing from me and excluding me from a family vacation, I supplied. Stealing. My God, you've become so materialistic. Is that what they teach you at that hospital? Money above family? Her voice rose dramatically. I raised you better than this, Mom. This isn't about money. It's about respect and honesty. Do not speak to me about honesty, young lady. Not after all the times you've broken promises to this family because of work. We never know if we can count on you. This outrageous accusation left me momentarily speechless. I'd rearranged countless shifts to accommodate family events, often at the cost of holiday pay or my reputation at work. Meanwhile, I'd been the only consistently reliable person in our family for years. That's not true, and you know it, I finally managed. See? You always think you're right. Your father is heartbroken. Absolutely heartbroken. Is that what you wanted? To break your father's heart on his anniversary trip? The call deteriorated from there, ending with her tearful declaration that I'd changed and become cold and calculating, followed by her hanging up on me. Rebecca was next, texting rather than calling. Oh my God, stop making such a drama out of this. We all know you paid for it to show off how much money you make anyway. Some of us are struggling to find stable careers while you lord your nursing job over us. Jealousy isn't a good look, sis. The sheer projection in her message would have been comical if it weren't so painful. I didn't respond, which prompted a barrage of increasingly antagonistic texts from her. Tyler called that evening, his approach different but equally manipulative. Hey Sam, this whole thing is crazy, right? Mom and Dad totally screwed up. I told them we should have tried harder to include you. His voice had that familiar quality, the one he used when buttering me up before asking for money. Thanks for acknowledging that, Tyler, I said cautiously. Totally. Hey, while I have you, I'm in a bit of a situation. The trip was more expensive than I expected, and I had to miss some shifts at work. There it was. Even in the midst of addressing how they'd excluded me from my own vacation gift, he was asking for more money. I can't help you right now, Tyler. What? But you always. I mean, I've got rent due and I spent a lot in Hawaii thinking I could pick up extra shifts when I got back, but they've cut my hours and figure it out yourself for once, I said, and ended the call. Haley's contribution came via a group text to the family. Everyone needs to stop attacking Samantha. She works so hard and gives so much to this family. But also, Sam, you're being kind of dramatic. It was just a mix-up with dates. It happens. The classic play both sides approach, typical of Haley who never wanted to commit to a position that might put her at odds with Rebecca or my parents. As the day progressed, the manipulation spread beyond my immediate family. My Aunt Susan called, clearly having received a carefully crafted version of events from my mother. Samantha, your mother is absolutely devastated. She says you accused them of stealing from you over some vacation misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Aunt Susan. They deliberately changed the dates of a vacation I paid for and went without me. Well, I'm sure they didn't mean to hurt you. You know how scatterbrained your mother can be with dates. And she mentioned you've been acting strangely lately, very paranoid about money. Are you doing okay, dear? Getting enough rest? The implication was clear. The family narrative was already being constructed to paint me as unstable, unreasonable, and possibly mentally ill. By evening, I'd received similar calls from 2 other aunts, an uncle, and my grandmother, all expressing concern about my extreme reaction and fragile mental state. The family grapevine was working overtime to discredit me before I could even fully process what had happened. The final blow came when my cousin Melissa sent me a screenshot of a family group chat I wasn't part of. In it, my mother had written, "We're all very worried about Samantha. The doctor said these episodes might happen under stress, but we didn't expect such paranoia. Please keep her in your prayers. And if she reaches out with any strange accusations, just be gentle and supportive without engaging too much." There was no doctor, no episodes, no history of mental health issues that would warrant such a message. This was character assassination. Plain and simple, a preemptive strike to ensure that if I tried to tell the truth about what happened, no one would believe me. I sat in my apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of relationships I had thought were flawed but fundamentally loving, and realized I'd been wrong. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a thoughtless oversight. This was a deliberate, coordinated campaign to use me for financial support while keeping me at arm's length, and to destroy my credibility if I ever called them out on it. The family I had sacrificed so much to support didn't just not appreciate me. They actively worked to exclude and undermine me. The revelation was like having the ground disappear beneath my feet, leaving me in free fall with no idea where I would land. 3 days after discovering my family's betrayal, I collapsed during my shift at Memorial General. 1 minute I was checking a patient's for. The next I was on the floor with my colleague Rachel kneeling beside me, calling my name through what seemed like layers of cotton. "Samantha, can you hear me? Someone get a gurney." "I'm fine," I mumbled, trying to stand despite the black spots dancing across my vision. Just got dizzy for a second. Rachel, an ER nurse, with 15 years of experience and a no-nonsense attitude, wasn't buying it. "You're not fine. Your pulse is racing. You're pale as a ghost. And you just hit the floor like a sack of potatoes. You're done for today." Despite my protests, I found myself in an exam room, hooked up to a monitor while Dr. Chen checked my vitals. The diagnosis was unambiguous: extreme stress, sleep deprivation, and the beginnings of what could become a serious anxiety disorder if left unchecked. "When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours?" Dr. Chen asked. reviewing my chart. I tried to remember. Between the extra shifts I'd picked up to pay for the Hawaii trip and the emotional fallout of the past few days, sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. Tuesday? Maybe? Before I found out about the vacation. Dr. Chen raised an eyebrow. That was 4 days ago. Samantha, Rachel, who had stayed in the room, crossed her arms. She's been going through hell with her family. Doctor. They stole $15,000 from her and have been gaslighting her ever since. Dr. Chen's expression softened. I'm putting you on mandatory leave for a week, minimum. And I'm serious about this. If I see you in this hospital for anything other than a follow-up appointment, I'll extend it to a month. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion had finally caught up with me. Maybe it was the fluorescent lights or the antiseptic smell, or just the culmination of years of giving until I had nothing left. But something broke inside me in that sterile exam room. They're never going to stop, I whispered, tears tracking silently down my face. As long as I keep giving, they'll keep taking. And the moment I say no, they turn everyone against me. Rachel sat on the edge of the bed and took my hand. Then maybe it's time to stop giving. Those words, simple as they were, marked a turning point. After Rachel drove me home and made sure I ate something, I slept for 14 hours straight. When I woke, instead of the fog of exhaustion that had become my constant companion, I felt a clarity I hadn't experienced in years. My family had declared war on me the moment I questioned their right to exploit my generosity. It was time to respond in kind. My first call was to Martin Goldstein, a financial advisor recommended by Dr. Chen's husband. I laid out everything, every loan, every gift, every dollar I'd given my family over the years. I need to know exactly how much they've taken from me, I told him. And I need to make sure they can't take any more. Martin was professional, but couldn't hide his shock as we compiled the numbers. Samantha, based on what you've told me, you've given your family approximately $127,000 over the past 5 years. That's not including smaller expenses or non-monetary support. The figure hung in the air between us, staggering in its magnitude. That money could have been a down payment on a house, a significant investment portfolio, or simply security for my future. Instead, it had funded Rebecca's failed business ventures, Tyler's gambling recovery programs, which never seemed to work, Haley's series of expensive hobbies, and my parents' increasingly lavish lifestyle. What can I do to recover any of it? I asked. Legally, it depends on how these transfers were characterized, Martin explained. Were there any formal loan agreements, promissory notes, written acknowledgments of debt? I shook my head, realizing my mistake. In my naivety, I'd trusted family bonds over legal documentation. For the vacation specifically, you might have a case since you can prove you paid for a service that was essentially stolen from you. For the rest, it will be challenging, but not impossible. My next appointment was with Patricia Hammond, an attorney specializing in financial disputes. She reviewed my case with the sharp eye of someone who had seen similar situations before. Family financial exploitation is more common than people realize, Patricia said. The good news is that the Hawaii vacation gives us a clear-cut case of what we call unjust enrichment. They received a benefit at your expense under circumstances that make it unfair for them to keep it without compensating you. We drafted a formal demand letter for the $15,000. With the understanding that if they didn't respond within 30 days, we would file a civil suit. It wasn't about the money anymore, it was about accountability. While legal proceedings began, I tackled another front, my own mental health. Dr. Williams, the hospital's staff psychologist, helped me develop a boundary plan. Your family has conditioned you to be their safety net, she explained during our first session. They know exactly which emotional buttons to push to maintain control. We need to identify those triggers and develop responses that protect your well-being. We created a 3-tier system for interactions with my family. Green, safe topics and reasonable requests that I could engage with normally. Yellow, potential manipulation attempts requiring careful response with pre-planned scripts. Red, serious boundary violations requiring immediate disengagement. I also started documenting everything, every call, text, social media post, and conversation with extended family members. If they were going to paint me as unstable, I would have a detailed record showing exactly who was behaving irrationally. The final piece of my initial response was financial security. I froze my credit, changed all my passwords, removed my parents as emergency contacts on my accounts, and updated my will to exclude my immediate family. These practical steps felt both liberating and sad concrete acknowledgments that the people who should have been most trustworthy in my life had proven themselves anything but. 1 week after my collapse at work, I sent the formal letter requesting repayment of the vacation money to each member of my immediate family. I expected anger, denial, or attempts at emotional manipulation. What I didn't expect was the level of coordinated aggression that followed. The family that had been content to take my money for years wasn't going to let their golden goose escape without a fight. The response to my letter was swift and vicious. Within hours of delivery, my phone exploded with notifications, calls, texts, social media alerts, a coordinated barrage designed to overwhelm and intimidate me into backing down. My mother led the charge with a tearful voicemail that quickly morphed from wounded innocence to threatening fury. "Samantha, how could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you, sending lawyers after your own family. People are going to hear about this. Do you really want everyone at the hospital knowing what kind of daughter you really are? Your father is having chest pains from the stress you're causing. If anything happens to him, that's on you." The implied threat was clear retreat or face public humiliation and blame for any health problems my father might conveniently develop. The hospital grapevine brought the first evidence that this wasn't an idle threat. Jennifer from Pediatrics stopped me in the cafeteria during my first day back at work, her expression uncomfortably sympathetic. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry about what you're going through," she said, lowering her voice. "Your mother called the nurse manager yesterday, is apparently hysterical about your mental breakdown and how the family is desperately trying to get you help. It's disgusting how she's spreading that around." Ice formed in my stomach. "My mother called the hospital?" Jennifer nodded. "She tried to convince them you're unstable and shouldn't be treating patients. Luckily, Dr. Chen shut that down immediately. But people are talking. The invasion of my professional space was bad enough, but my father took it a step further the next day. I was assisting with a cardiac patient when a commotion erupted in the hallway. Through the glass door, I could see my father arguing with security, his voice carrying even through the barrier. "That's my daughter in there. She's not well. We're trying to help her." Dr. Rivera, the attending physician, glanced at me. "Is that your father making a scene in my hospital?" "Yes," I admitted, mortified. "He's retaliating because I asked for repayment of money they took from me. Handle it, or I will," Dr. Rivera said firmly, then added more gently. "And Mitchell, whatever's happening with your family, don't let it interfere with patient care. We need you focused." By the time I reached the hallway, security had escorted my father to the lobby, but the damage was done. My colleagues had witnessed the spectacle, and the rumors it would generate would only fuel the narrative my family was crafting about my supposed instability. Rebecca's attack came through social media, her preferred battlefield. She created a post filled with carefully selected photos of me from family gatherings over the years, each one chosen to make me look angry, drunk, or emotional, accompanied by a heartfelt plea, asking for prayers for my sister Samantha, who's going through a really difficult mental health crisis right now. Our family is heartbroken, watching her push away everyone who loves her and create these elaborate stories about us betraying her. Mental illness is so stigmatized, and I want her to know we still love her and want to help her get the treatment she needs. End the stigma. Mental health awareness. Family first. The post garnered hundreds of sympathetic comments from mutual friends and distant relatives, many expressing shock and offering prayers for my recovery. It was a masterful piece of character, assassination disguised as concern, and it was working. Tyler's contribution to the campaign was perhaps the most painful. He showed up at my apartment on Saturday morning, my 4-year-old nephew Lucas in tow. Lucas, with his curly hair and gap-toothed smile, was the one pure relationship in my life. I'd been his Auntie Sam since the day he was born, babysitting him countless times, taking him to the zoo and children's museums, reading him stories before bed. He was the reason I'd continued to help Tyler financially, even when I knew much of the money was going to gambling debts. I couldn't bear the thought of Lucas suffering for his father's mistakes. "Auntie Sam," Lucas squealed, throwing his arms around my legs. "Daddy says you're sick. Are you sick?" I brought you my special bear to help you feel better. He thrust his treasured teddy bear, the one I'd given him for his 3rd birthday, toward me. My heart simultaneously melted and broke. I'm not sick, buddy, just a little tired. Tyler's expression was a calculated blend of concern and regret. Lucas, go play with your tablet in the living room for a few minutes while I talk to Auntie Sam. Once Lucas was out of earshot, Tyler's facade dropped. Mom and Dad think it would be better if Lucas didn't spend time with you for a while. Not until you get help. You're using your son to blackmail me? I whispered, disbelief and rage warring within me. I'm protecting my son from someone who's clearly having delusions about her family, Tyler countered smoothly. But I'm sure we could work something out if you dropped this ridiculous legal stuff and apologized to everyone. Lucas really loves his aunt. I stared at my brother, finally seeing him clearly. Get out of my apartment. Fine. Lucas, we're leaving, he called, then lowered his voice. Just remember, if you push this, you won't see him again. Is that worth $15,000 to you? After they left, I sat on my kitchen floor and sobbed, the manipulation having found its perfect target. They knew I would do almost anything to maintain my relationship with Lucas, but the attacks weren't over. 2 days later, I received an alert from my credit monitoring service about a credit card application submitted in my name. Then, another, and another. Someone had attempted to open 5 credit cards using my social security number and personal information. A call to the credit agencies confirmed my suspicion. The applications had been submitted from an IP address linked to Haley's apartment building. My youngest sister, who had access to my personal information from all the times I'd helped her with financial paperwork, was attempting to commit identity theft as revenge. The most unexpected attack came through Daniel, my ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago. We'd parted on decent terms after realizing we wanted different things. He was set on moving to Seattle for a tech job, while my life and career were firmly rooted in our hometown. The relationship had ended amicably, with occasional friendly texts on birthdays and holidays. So I was surprised when he called out of the blue, his voice uncomfortable. Sam, this is awkward, but your mom called me yesterday. She said you're going through some kind of breakdown and asked if I remembered any concerning behavior from when we were dating. She specifically asked if you ever accused me of stealing from you or lying about things. What? I felt violated on multiple levels. Daniel, they're trying to discredit me because I asked for repayment of money they took. I figured it was something like that, he said. I told her our relationship was perfectly normal and healthy, and that you were always rational and honest. She didn't like that answer much. The desperation in their tactics was becoming clear. They were reaching into every corner of my life, looking for ammunition to use against me. The final revelation of their counterattack came unexpectedly through a call from my bank's fraud department. They'd identified suspicious activity on my mortgage account. Someone had attempted to access it using my online credentials and security questions. There's something else you should know, Miss Mitchell, the bank representative added. There appears to be a second mortgage on your parents' home that lists you as a cosigner. It was taken out 3 months ago. I froze. That's impossible. I never signed anything like that. The signature matches the one we have on file for you. The loan is for $50,000. The room spun around me as I realized the magnitude of what my parents had done. They had forged my signature on a second mortgage, potentially making me liable for a loan I knew nothing about. If they defaulted, it would destroy my credit and could lead to legal consequences for me. As I was reeling from this discovery, my phone lit up with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Samantha, it's Aunt Martha. We need to talk privately. Not at my house or yours. Can you meet me at Riverside Park tomorrow at 10? Come alone and don't tell anyone in the family we're meeting. Aunt Martha had always been the family outsider, my mother's older sister who had distanced herself from the family years ago for reasons no one discussed. We saw her at major holidays sometimes, but she remained on the periphery, watching family dynamics with knowing eyes but rarely commenting. I hadn't considered reaching out to her during this ordeal, assuming she was too removed from the situation to be of help. Her message suggested I'd made a serious miscalculation, one that might provide unexpected insight into the war I was fighting. The next morning, I arrived at the park bench Martha had specified, hyper-vigilant and emotionally exhausted from the constant attacks. What I didn't know was that the conversation I was about to have would transform my understanding of not just the current situation, but my entire family history and provide the key to fighting back effectively. Aunt Martha was already waiting when I arrived at the park, her silver hair gleaming in the morning sunlight, hands wrapped around a travel mug of coffee. At 63, she carried herself with a quiet dignity that had always made her seem separate from the rest of the Mitchell family drama. "Thank you for coming," she said, patting the bench beside her. "I've been watching what they're doing to you. It's their playbook. I recognize it because they used it on me 20 years ago." For the next hour, Martha unveiled a family history I'd never known. How my mother and father had systematically isolated and exploited her after my grandfather's death, convincing relatives she was unstable while draining her inheritance. How they'd forged her signature on documents, spread rumors about mental illness when she confronted them, and ultimately forced her to move away to rebuild her life. "Your mother has always been this way, Samantha. When we were children, she would break things and blame me, steal money from our parents and say I took it. She's pathologically incapable of taking responsibility, and your father enables it completely." The parallels to my situation were undeniable and chilling. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I see myself in you," Martha said simply, "and because I have information that might help you. I've been keeping tabs on the family finances through a connection at their bank. Don't ask how. The Hawaii vacation wasn't paid for with your money. That money went to cover a gambling debt Tyler accumulated with some very dangerous people. Your parents used their house as collateral for a second loan, putting your name on it without your knowledge." The revelation left me breathless. "They committed fraud, yes, and they'll destroy you before they admit it," Martha warned. "Be careful, Samantha. They're cornered, and they'll do whatever it takes to discredit you." As if to confirm her words, my phone buzzed with a text from Human Resources at the hospital requesting an urgent meeting that afternoon. The family counterattack was accelerating. The HR meeting was worse than I could have imagined. Pamela Jenkins, the department director, looked uncomfortable as she slid a folder across her desk. "We've received some concerning communications about you, Samantha. Multiple calls from family members expressing worry about your mental state. Claims you're experiencing paranoid delusions about them stealing from you." My stomach dropped. "That's not true. They took money from me and are retaliating because I asked for repayment." "I understand, but there's more." She hesitated. "There's also been an anonymous complaint alleging prescription medication mishandling. The implication was clear. Someone had suggested I was stealing drugs from the hospital. It was a devastating accusation for a nurse, one that could end my career even if proven false." "That's a lie," I said, my voice shaking. "You can check the logs, the counts, everything. I've never taken so much as an aspirin from this hospital." "We're conducting a full investigation," Pamela assured me. "But in the meantime, you're being placed on administrative leave." Just like that, my professional identity, the one thing my family hadn't managed to taint, was suspended. As I left the HR office, I felt the weight of defeat pressing down on me. Without my job, I had no income to fight the legal battle ahead. Without my reputation, I had no credibility to counter their narrative. The hits kept coming. When I arrived home, I found an official notice from the credit bureau. My credit score had dropped nearly 200 points due to multiple hard inquiries, and new accounts opened in my name. Haley's identity theft had succeeded where her first attempts had failed. My phone pinged with a notification from my bank app. My checking account was overdrawn by $3,000. A quick call confirmed someone had made a large withdrawal using personal information that should have been secure. The bank promised to investigate, but it would take 7 to 10 business days to resolve and restore my funds. That evening, I received a notice of a temporary restraining order filed against me by Rebecca, claiming I had been making threatening calls and appearing outside her apartment at odd hours. It was completely fabricated. I hadn't spoken to her or been anywhere near her apartment, but the order required me to stay at least 500 feet away from her and restricted my movement in parts of the city where I regularly went. The isolation was complete when I checked social media and found dozens of mutual friends had unfriended me, no doubt in response to the narrative my family was spreading. Even my cousin Melissa, who had initially warned me about the family group chat, had posted a message distancing herself. Sometimes the hardest thing is watching someone you care about spiral and refuse help. Praying for healing for our whole family. Financially strained, professionally compromised, legally entangled, socially isolated, and emotionally exhausted. I reached my lowest point that night. Sitting on my kitchen floor, back against the refrigerator, I considered giving in. Maybe if I apologized, withdrew the legal demand, and resumed my role as the family ATM, they would stop destroying what remained of my life. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, ready to call my mother and surrender. As I did, a text from Rachel appeared. Heard what happened at work. This is bullshit. I'm coming over with wine and takeout. No arguments. An hour later, my apartment held the beginnings of what would become my war council. Rachel had called Alicia, who brought Dr. Chen from the hospital. Aunt Martha arrived with a folder full of financial documents. By midnight, my small living room contained 6 people determined to help me fight back. "You're not alone in this," Rachel said firmly, pouring more wine into my glass. "And you're not giving up. They're trying to isolate you because they know you're stronger with support," Alicia added. Classic abuser tactic. Dr. Chen, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. "The hospital investigation will clear you, Samantha. I've already spoken with Dr. Rivera, and we're both submitting statements about your character and work performance. The medication logs show nothing irregular, and I've spoken to my attorney about the identity theft and fraud," Martha said. "We can fight this, but you need to be prepared for things to get worse before they get better." As the night progressed, my apartment transformed from a place of defeat to a command center. Rachel used her boyfriend's cybersecurity expertise to help secure my accounts and trace the identity theft. Alicia, a social media manager by day, developed a strategy to counter the narrative without engaging directly with family members' posts. By the time dawn broke, exhaustion had given way to resolve. I might be battered, but I was far from defeated. My family had underestimated me in 2 critical ways. They thought I would fight alone, and they thought I would fight by their rules. They were wrong on both counts. The morning after my support team's intervention, we gathered around my dining table with fresh coffee and renewed determination. This wasn't just about recovering money anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and dignity from people who had systematically exploited and abused me for years. "We need to be strategic," Aunt Martha said, spreading out documents on the table. "Your parents and siblings are fighting dirty, but they're also making mistakes. Serious ones." Patricia Hammond, my attorney who had joined us via video call, nodded in agreement. "They've escalated from civil matters to criminal offenses, identity theft, fraud, defamation. We can use that." We developed a 3-phase plan that would turn my family's tactics against them. Phase 1, documentation and defense. We would systematically gather evidence of every false accusation, financial violation, and defamatory statement. Instead of responding emotionally to provocations, we would document them for legal purposes. "The restraining order Rebecca filed is actually helpful to us," Patricia explained. "It creates an official record we can disprove with your phone, GPS data, and security camera footage from your apartment building, showing you were nowhere near her when she claims you were stalking her." Rachel, whose husband worked in digital forensics, offered to help recover deleted social media posts and messages from family members. They think deleting evidence makes it disappear. It doesn't. Alicia began compiling screenshots of every defamatory post, comment, and message, creating a chronological record of the smear campaign. Phase 2, financial forensics and security. Martha's banking contact had provided crucial information about the forged second mortgage and misappropriated vacation funds, but we needed more comprehensive financial documentation. "We need to trace exactly where your money went over the years," said Martin Goldstein, my financial advisor. "Hawaii is just the tip of the iceberg." We meticulously reconstructed my financial history with my family, identifying patterns. $47,000 to Tyler, ostensibly for business investments and emergency expenses, $32,000 to Rebecca for education and career opportunities that never materialized, $28,000 to my parents for house repairs and medical expenses, most of which couldn't be verified, $20,000 to Haley for various crises and opportunities. The total approached $130,000 money that could have secured my own future, now gone to fund their lifestyle and poor choices. While Martin worked on the historical analysis, Rachel's husband helped implement military-grade security for my remaining accounts, devices, and home systems. We changed all passwords, established two-factor authentication, froze my credit with all 3 bureaus, and installed security cameras at my apartment. Phase 3. Strategic legal action. Patricia outlined our legal strategy. We'll start with the criminal matters, identity theft and fraud. Those carry serious consequences and create leverage for resolving the civil issues. Rather than pursuing all family members equally, we would focus first on the most vulnerable. Haley, whose identity theft attempts were easily provable and who had the least influence within the family dynamic. Haley will crack under pressure, Martha predicted. She follows Rebecca's lead, but she doesn't have Rebecca's spine. If we present her with evidence and a way out that involves testifying against the others, she'll take it. Dr. Chen, who had remained mostly silent during the planning, finally spoke up. What about your professional reputation? The damage they're doing at the hospital could affect your career long-term. This was my greatest concern. I could survive financial loss, but nursing was my identity, my purpose. The false accusations about medication mishandling could follow me for years. I've spoken with Dr. Williams, Dr. Chen continued, surprising me. She's prepared to issue a formal statement regarding your mental health and stability based on your sessions. With your permission, of course. I hesitated, uncomfortable with sharing my private therapy discussions, even to clear my name. She wouldn't disclose details, Dr. Chen clarified. Just confirm that you've shown no signs of paranoia or delusion and that your response to family conflict has been rational and appropriate. There's something else, Rachel added. I've spoken with a dozen nurses and doctors who want to support you. They're prepared to sign a statement vouching for your professionalism and integrity. The thought of my colleagues standing behind me brought unexpected tears to my eyes. For years, I'd felt isolated within my biological family. I hadn't fully recognized the chosen family I'd built among my coworkers. The hospital director wants to meet with you tomorrow, Dr. Chen said quietly. Dr. Williams privately briefed him on the situation. This was unexpected. Dr. James Peterson rarely involved himself in staff matters below the department head level. Is that good or bad? I asked nervously. Good, Dr. Chen assured me. Very good. As our planning session stretched into the afternoon, we developed contingency strategies for every possible countermove my family might make. If they escalated the mental health allegations, we had medical professionals ready to refute them. If they attempted further financial sabotage, we had monitoring systems in place. If they tried to turn more friends and relatives against me, we had a truth campaign ready to launch at the appropriate time. The final piece came from an unexpected source. Aunt Martha slid a USB drive across the table to me. What's this? I asked. Insurance, she replied grimly. 20 years of family secrets I've been collecting. Financial misconduct, affairs, lies, told to various family members about each other. I never wanted to use it, but they've crossed too many lines with you. I stared at the small device, understanding the nuclear option it represented. I don't want to destroy them, Martha. I just want them to stop destroying me. Sometimes those are the same thing, she said softly. Keep it. Use it only if absolutely necessary. By the end of our session, the helplessness of the previous night had transformed into calculated resolve. My family had decades of practice manipulating emotions and perceptions. What they weren't prepared for was a coordinated, evidence-based counteroffensive backed by professionals and witnesses. The next morning, I met with Dr. Peterson in his office, overlooking the hospital grounds. I expected a formal, uncomfortable conversation about the allegations against me. Instead, he got straight to the point. Dr. Chen and Dr. Williams have briefed me on your situation, Nurse Mitchell. The hospital has received multiple concerning communications about you, all from family members, all suspiciously similar in nature. I can explain, I began, but he held up a hand. You don't need to. We've worked together for 6 years. I've reviewed your performance records, medication logs, and patient feedback. There's nothing there to support these accusations. Relief flooded through me as he continued. Moreover, our security team has identified the individuals making these calls and sending these emails. They'll be formally warned about making false reports that interfere with hospital operations. Your administrative leave is rescinded, effective immediately, with full back pay. Thank you, I managed, fighting tears. There's more, he said, his expression softening slightly. The board has been considering candidates for the new patient advocacy director position. Your name was already on the shortlist. In light of how you've handled this personal crisis while maintaining professionalism, I'm prepared to offer you the position now. The promotion would mean a significant salary increase, more regular hours, and a step up in hospital leadership, all things that would strengthen my position in the ongoing battle with my family. As I left Dr. Peterson's office, I received a text from Patricia. Police report filed for identity theft. Detective Baker assigned to the case. Meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Piece by piece, our strategy was falling into place. I had spent years being manipulated and exploited by the people who should have loved me most. Now, with the right support and the right plan, I was finally fighting back. The family that had declared war on me was about to discover they had gravely underestimated their opponent. The morning of our planned confrontation arrived with a surreal calm. After weeks of preparation, evidence gathering, and legal maneuvering, we were ready to present my family with the consequences of their actions. The meeting was set for 2 p.m. at Patricia's law office neutral territory, with security cameras and witnesses. Each family member had received a formal letter requesting their presence to discuss the resolution of outstanding financial and legal matters. Vague enough to compel attendance, specific enough to cause concern. Remember the strategy, Patricia reminded me as we waited in the conference room. Stay calm, stick to facts. Don't get drawn into emotional arguments. We're not here for reconciliation today. We're here to establish boundaries and consequences. My support team was strategically positioned. Patricia and her associate at the head of the table, projector ready with documented evidence. Aunt Martha beside me, a silent reminder of family history. Dr. Williams near the door, both for my psychological support and as an expert witness to my mental state. A police detective would join for the second half of the meeting to address criminal matters. My parents arrived first, my father's confident stride faltering slightly upon seeing the formal setup. My mother's eyes narrowed at the sight of Martha. "What is she doing here?" she demanded. The first words spoken revealing her priorities. "Hello to you too, Judith," Martha replied evenly. Rebecca arrived next, designer sunglasses pushed back on her head, impatience radiating from her posture. Tyler followed minutes later, unshaven and visibly nervous. Haley was last, eyes red as though she'd been crying, avoiding everyone's gaze. Once seated, Patricia took control immediately. "Thank you all for coming. We're here to address serious matters involving financial misconduct, defamation, and identity theft. This meeting is being recorded with consent under state law. If anyone objects, you're free to leave, though I advise against it." No one moved. Patricia nodded to me. This was my moment, the speech I had practiced countless times, designed to set the tone without emotional vulnerability. For years, I began, my voice steady. I've provided financial support to this family. Over $130,000 documented in loans and gifts, including the recent $15,000 Hawaii vacation from which I was deliberately excluded. When I requested repayment, instead of acknowledgement, I received a coordinated campaign of defamation, professional sabotage, and financial fraud. My mother interrupted immediately, as predicted. "This is ridiculous. Samantha has been having mental health issues. Imagining conspiracies," Patricia cut her off. "Mrs. Mitchell, I have here statements from Dr. Williams, Dr. Chen, and hospital director Dr. Peterson confirming Samantha's excellent mental health and professional standing. I also have documentation of 17 false reports made to her workplace, all traced back to this family's IP addresses and phone numbers." The projector illuminated with the first set of evidence screenshots, call logs, and email records showing the extent of their interference with my career. "That's circumstantial," my father argued weakly. "Anyone could have used our computers or phones. Let's move to the financial evidence." Patricia continued smoothly, advancing the slides. We have bank records showing the $15,000 vacation payment, followed by transfers totaling the same amount to Tyler's accounts, coinciding with payments to known gambling entities. Tyler paled. That's private information. You can't. We obtained it legally through discovery processes related to the identity theft investigation, Patricia assured him. Speaking of which, the next slides showed credit card applications, account access attempts, and IP traces, all leading directly to Haley's apartment and devices. My youngest sister burst into tears. Rebecca told me to do it, she blurted out. She said it would teach Samantha a lesson for abandoning the family. Rebecca's composed facade cracked. Shut up, Haley. Don't say another word. Too late for that, Patricia noted calmly. Detective Baker has joined us to discuss the criminal aspects of these activities. The detective entered, adding an official weight to the proceedings. Haley's sobbing intensified. I didn't know it was a felony, she managed between tears. Rebecca said it would just mess up her credit score a little, as payback for her being so selfish. Detective Baker explained the potential charges: identity theft, fraud, harassment, defamation, and the possible sentences they carried. Up to 5 years for the identity theft alone. However, he added, in cases like this, cooperation can significantly impact how charges are filed and prosecuted. The implication hung in the air. My family was being offered a choice: cooperate and make amends, or face the full legal consequences of their actions. My mother, ever the strategist, attempted to regain control. This is all a misunderstanding. We're family, we can work this out privately without all this legal nonsense. Samantha, honey, you know we love you. We've always supported you. For a moment, I felt the familiar pull of her manipulation, the lifetime of conditioning to prioritize family harmony over my own well-being. This was the critical moment Patricia had prepared me for. The time for working things out informally has passed, I said firmly. You had that opportunity when I first contacted you about the vacation money. Instead, you chose to attack my career, my finances, and my reputation. I slid a document folder across the table. These are the terms for moving forward. They're non-negotiable. The folder contained our prepared resolution. 1. Full repayment of the $15,000 vacation fund, plus $10,000 in legal and credit restoration fees. 2. Signed admissions of the false statements made to my workplace and formal retractions. 3. Removal of all defamatory social media posts and public apologies. 4. Structured, limited contact going forward, with clear boundaries and consequences. 5. Family therapy if any relationship was to be salvaged in the future. Luke. A formal agreement regarding my nephew Lucas, ensuring my continued relationship with him. In exchange, I continued, I won't pursue civil action for the full $130,000 in unpaid loans, and I'll recommend leniency regarding the criminal charges, particularly for Haley. My father scoffed. You can't prove those were loans. You gave us that money as gifts. Actually, Patricia interjected, we have text messages, emails, and witnesses to conversations where repayment was discussed for many of these transactions. In civil court, these would be considered implied loans. The room fell silent as my family absorbed the reality of their situation. They had expected emotional outbursts, pleas for understanding, perhaps tears the Samantha they could manipulate and dismiss. Instead, they faced a prepared adversary with evidence, legal standing, and unwavering resolve. Tyler broke first. I'll sign, and I'll pay back whatever I can. I'm sorry, Sam. I really am. Haley, still crying, nodded in agreement. Me too. I didn't want to do any of it. I was scared of being cut off from everyone. Rebecca and my parents exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. I recognized it as the same look they'd shared before many family manipulations over the years. We need time to review these terms with our own lawyer, my mother announced. Attempting to project confidence she clearly didn't feel. You have 48 hours, Patricia replied. After that, we proceed with both civil and criminal filings. As the meeting concluded, Detective Baker took Haley aside for a formal statement about the identity theft. Tyler approached me hesitantly. Sam, about Lucas. He misses you. Whatever happens with the rest of this, He shouldn't lose his aunt. It was the one genuine moment in an otherwise strategic encounter, and it affected me more than I wanted to admit. I miss him too. That's why he's specifically addressed in the agreement. My parents left without speaking to me directly. My father's arm protectively around my mother's shoulders, as though she were the victim in this scenario. Rebecca paused at the door, her expression unreadable. "You won't win this," she said quietly. "Family always comes first. You'll see." After they left, my support team gathered around me. The confrontation had gone largely according to plan, but the emotional toll was evident. Dr. Williams gently led me through a grounding exercise as the others discussed next steps. "They'll try to find loopholes," Patricia warned. "Especially your parents and Rebecca. Be prepared for one more push to avoid consequences." Aunt Martha nodded in agreement. Judith never accepts defeat, but she's also pragmatic when cornered. She'll sign eventually to avoid public scandal. Detective Baker returned from his interview with Haley. "She's given us enough to proceed with charges, but she's also providing evidence against your sister Rebecca as the instigator. That could be valuable leverage." By evening, the adrenaline of the confrontation had faded, leaving me exhausted but resolved. This wasn't the clean, satisfying conclusion I might have wanted. Family dynamics rarely allow for such neat resolutions. But it was a decisive step toward justice and, more importantly, toward freedom from the cycle of exploitation and manipulation that had defined my family relationships for decades. True to Martha's prediction, my mother attempted one final countermove the next day, a tearful phone call to my boss, claiming I was being manipulated by my estranged aunt with a vendetta against the family. It fell flat against the mountain of evidence we had compiled. 47 hours after our meeting, just under the deadline, signed agreements arrived from each family member, along with the first installment of financial restitution. My parents' document included a handwritten note from my father. "We still believe this is a misunderstanding, but we're signing to put this unfortunate situation behind us. No apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Just a final attempt to reframe their exploitation as a simple misunderstanding." I filed the note with the rest of the documentation, another piece of evidence in a lifetime of manipulation. The legal battle was largely won, but the emotional one would take longer to resolve. That was okay. For the first time in my adult life, I had set boundaries with my family and watched them hold. It wasn't reconciliation, but it was something more important: respect. As Aunt Martha said when I called her with the news, "They're respecting your boundaries not because they've changed, but because you've shown them the cost of crossing you is finally higher than the benefit." That's not love, but it's a start. 6 months after the confrontation at Patricia's office, I sat on the lanai of my oceanfront suite in Maui, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The gentle rhythm of waves against the shore provided a soundtrack to my reflections on how dramatically my life had changed. The financial restitution was progressing according to the agreements. Tyler had been the most consistent, setting up automatic payments from his new job at a construction company, genuine work for the first time in years. Haley, after completing community service related to the identity theft charges, reduced due to her cooperation, had enrolled in community college and reached out with tentative efforts to rebuild our relationship on healthier terms. My parents and Rebecca maintained minimal contact, complying with the legal requirements but showing little interest in genuine reconciliation. Their monthly payments arrived precisely on schedule, never early, never late, a mechanical fulfillment of obligation, without emotional investment. In many ways, their distance was a gift. The boundary between us allowed me to focus on my own healing rather than managing their reactions or needs. With Dr. Williams' guidance, I'd been working through the complex grief that comes with family estrangement mourning, not just the relationships I had lost, but the healthy ones I had never truly had. Grief doesn't only follow death, Dr. Williams had explained during one particularly difficult session. It follows any significant loss, including the loss of illusions about the family you thought you had. Those illusions had been difficult to surrender. Despite years of evidence to the contrary, I had clung to the belief that beneath the manipulation and exploitation, my family truly loved me. Accepting that their definition of love was conditional and transactional was painful but ultimately liberating. My professional life had flourished in the wake of the conflict. The patient advocacy director position played to my strengths: empathy, organization, and a newfound ability to establish firm boundaries. My colleagues, many of whom had supported me during the worst of my family's campaign against me, became a chosen family whose relationships were based on mutual respect rather than obligation. My relationship with Aunt Martha deepened as we discovered similarities beyond our shared experiences with family manipulation. Her wisdom, forged through her own journey to independence, provided guidance as I navigated my new reality. Weekly dinners at her cottage outside the city became a cherished routine filled with laughter, honest conversation, and the simple pleasure of being fully accepted. The most precious relationship to survive the family fracture was with my nephew Lucas. True to our agreement, Tyler brought him for regular visits, often stepping back to allow us uninterrupted time together. At 5, Lucas was blissfully unaware of the adult complexities surrounding him, simply happy to have his Auntie Sam back in his life. Through him, I maintained a connection to the family I had distanced myself from, but on healthier terms. Dinosaurs only like green jelly beans, he informed me solemnly during a recent visit, organizing candy by color with intense concentration. Is that scientific fact? I asked, equally serious. Yes. T-Rex told me in my dream. These moments of innocent connection reminded me that family bonds could be nurturing rather than depleting when built on genuine care rather than exploitation. My relationship with Tyler was evolving too. Without my parents' and Rebecca's influence, he seemed to be finding his own moral compass. During a recent visit to drop off Lucas, he had lingered awkwardly in my doorway. "I've been going to Gamblers Anonymous," he admitted, studying the floor. 6 weeks now. Should have done it years ago instead of taking your money. It wasn't a direct apology, but it was acknowledgement, a step toward accountability I hadn't expected. Financial freedom brought other changes. The money that had previously been directed to family emergencies now funded my own future. I had started a modest investment portfolio, begun saving for a down payment on a house, and allowed myself small luxuries like this solo trip to Hawaii, a symbolic reclaiming of what had been taken from me. Rachel had insisted on driving me to the airport, her parting words echoing in my mind throughout the vacation. "This trip isn't just about relaxation, Sam. It's about reclaiming your narrative. Take lots of pictures, but make sure you're in them this time." I had followed her advice, filling my phone with selfies at the beach, on hiking trails, at luau's physical evidence of my presence in my own life story. Tonight, I had dinner reservations at the same restaurant where my family had enjoyed meals I had paid for but never experienced myself. Tomorrow, I would take the snorkeling excursion I had originally booked for all of us. Each activity was an act of reclamation, a statement that I deserved to enjoy the fruits of my own labor. As the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone chimed with a message from James, a pediatric surgeon I had been dating for 2 months. We had met during a hospital committee meeting, his quiet intelligence and respect for boundaries drawing me in gradually. Unlike previous relationships where I had fallen into caretaking roles, this connection was balanced, each of us self-sufficient but choosing to share our lives. "Hope Hawaii is treating you well," his text read. "The hospital feels empty without you. Dinner when you're back?" The simple message carried no expectations, no guilt, no manipulation, just genuine interest in my well-being and a desire for my company. It represented everything I had learned to value in relationships since setting boundaries with my family. Relationships should add to your life, not drain it. Love should be expressed through actions, not just words. Respect includes honoring boundaries without resentment. Healthy connections support independence, not dependency. These principles, once theoretical concepts in therapy, had become the foundation for rebuilding my social world. The friends who had stood by me during the family crisis remained central to my life, while new relationships were carefully evaluated against these standards before being welcomed into my inner circle. As darkness fell over the ocean, I reflected on the journey from that devastating phone call the whole family went last week to this moment of peaceful self-possession. The path had been painful, filled with betrayal, legal battles, and the sorrow of broken family bonds. Yet it had also brought clarity, authentic connections, and a deeper understanding of my own worth. I had paid a high price financially and emotionally for the lessons of the past year. But as I sat alone, yet not lonely on that Hawaiian lanai, I understood that some prices, however steep, are worth paying for freedom and self-respect. The family that had sought to break me had instead forced me to become stronger. The money they had taken had purchased my eventual liberation from their manipulation. The vacation they had stolen had been reclaimed as a celebration of independence. Sometimes, healing doesn't look like forgiveness or reconciliation. Sometimes it looks like boundaries, consequences, and the courage to walk away from relationships that diminish rather than enhance your life. Sometimes it looks like a woman sitting alone on a beach in Hawaii, finally understanding that she deserves every good thing she has worked for, without apology or explanation. As I write this from my final night in Maui, I wonder how many of you have experienced similar family betrayals. Have you ever had to set painful boundaries with people you love? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember that sharing helps others feel less alone in their struggles. If this story resonated with you, please hit like and subscribe to support more content about family dynamics, healing, and personal growth. And if you know someone who might benefit from hearing that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being, please share this video with them. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, the family we choose can be as meaningful as the one we're born into, sometimes more so. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next video.